Kind of a frustrating moment here, because at the end of the episode, the angle torque wrench that I was using broke. You remember that? The Quinn brand from Harbor Freight? I took that back, and I instead ordered from Amazon one of these guys that cost, I don't know, $20, $25 on Amazon. But they do the job, but it's a little tricky. Took me a while to figure it out. So anyway, we're gonna go ahead and torque down some of these. Remember, we had to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? We had to do 15 pounds, and then we had to come back and do 80 degrees, all right? And then my torque wrench broke, the one that does the degrees. So anyway, come on in, now you can zoom in. All right, so here's how this kind of goofy thing works. You have to, here, come on, you can shoot down on this. Notice how there's these angles on them, right? Well, you have to, this little thing, it took me a while to figure out, you need something for it to butt up against. And then once you have it tight, then you turn this to reach 0. Okay, see how it's on the 0? And now I'm gonna go 80 degrees, ready? So, and this, the whole point of this is to stop the whole thing from turning. All right, so ready? We're gonna go 80 degrees. All right, that's 80 degrees. Now sure, a beeping one would have been a lot nicer, but this one is cheap and it does the job, so.
All right.
Yeah, you know, the one with the beeping one would be nice, but I didn't have time to get another one of those, and this does the trick. So anyway, get the idea. You put the bolt in to stop this whole thing from turning, and then you set this to 0, and then around you go to 80. All right, got it? All right, so now we're gonna go to this next one here. Same idea. We're gonna use this to kind of stop it as a stopper. And then we're going to change this to 0. All right, and then 1, 2, 3. There's 80. Honestly, I feel like this might be slightly more accurate, you know, because that other one just kind of beeps. You know, so it takes a little longer to set up though. That's the downside. This one takes a while to set up. It's kind of a pain. I'd rather just reset the gauge and go to the next one. But it is what it is.
Okay.
All right, that's 80. All right. All right, so now I gotta tighten these outer ones. So we're gonna do the outer ones that take this. Take this bolt or this socket. These also go. I can edit that out. To 15 pounds. All right, and I believe we're set up. We're set up for 15 pounds. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 15 pounds is not that much. And then it says, once done, use your torque angle gauge at 51 degrees. All right. So back to this gizmo. All right. Maybe I will spend the money on a nice new.
It's just a pain.
It is a pain. All right. So what do we need? We need, what is this? That's 15, I believe. So let me get this. You see, some things are worth the money. So perhaps what I need is to have gotten a better angle torque wrench other than a Harbor Freight brand, for something that's precise, precision measure. There's some things you can get away with the Harbor Freight cheapo, but there's some things you can't. And torque wrench is not one of them. All right, so this bolt is not, see the situation we've run into here? Our little stopper here, it doesn't go down enough. So, and I can't back it out anymore. So I need to either find something else to stop it, or a taller bolt, or just take a break from this and go buy a good digital torque wrench. So, all right. So what I decided to do was flip, here, come on this side so we can see what's going on here. I decided to flip the L, so now it's going to butt up against the cap. All right, not exactly the way I'd really want to do it, but we'll see if it works. So we need to go to 51 degrees, which is basically right there. Oh, see how that's turning? See how this is turning? It's not catching it. It's not, so I've turned it with, but it didn't record the number of degrees.
Right.
So I can't endorse this product either. This product's a piece of crap, just like the other, and I did not get this from Harbor Freight. So when you put it in there like this, it ain't working very well. So that's a shame. All right. So this little cheat way here is doing the job, but let me tell you something. I'm not going to do the final assembly with this. I'm going to get me a good angle torque wrench, because I ain't going to fool with this like this on the final assembly. All right. Thank God that was the last one. It's the 18 for the that's 15, 16, 17, 18. All right. All right. There's no sequence, just as long as you do one then the other. All right. Now back to pre-assembly. So now it says, all right, so now the crank, after the caps have been tightened, the crank should turn freely, which it does, thank God. The crank turns freely. So this is the final tightness, and the crank does, actually it spins real nice. So this actually makes my day. Because the instructions, if this wouldn't have spun, it says, if the crank does not spin, repeat the thrust bearing alignment procedure. If this does not cure the problem, something may be wrong with your block's main bearing bores or their alignment. So, whew, check. All right. Now we have to check crankshaft end play. And it says there are a couple ways to check that your thrust bearing or number 3 main bearing is allowing the proper crankshaft end play. The simpler way is via a feeler gauge. Okay, so let's get a feeler gauge. I want to do simple. All right, insert a large flathead screwdriver between a crank and a counterweight and a main cap and pry rearward or forward, measuring the space between the thrust surface on the crank and the thrust bearing. Measure both the space in front and the space behind for comparison purposes. GM recommends between 15 thousandths and 78 thousandths of an inch of clearance. The more accurate way to measure this is to mount a dowel indicator to read off of the crank snout or rear crank flange and record dowel indicator movements as you pry forward and aft. So do you want to do the easier way or do you want to do the harder way? Or no, wait, let me restate that. Do you want to do the easier way or do you want to do the more accurate way?
More accurate.
More accurate? That's what I was thinking. All right. So I got this set up and it says here, what we want to do is we want to insert a large flathead screwdriver between a crank counterweight and the main cap and pry rearward and forward, measuring the space between the thrust surface on the crank and the thrust bearing. Okay, so what we want to do is go ahead and oops. This is acting kind of lousy. All right, I have it set for 0. All right, now technically we're supposed to push this guy forward to measure the end play. Problem is this This screwdriver's too thick. So that's about 5/1000ths right there. And that's about 5/1000ths. Try one more time. See that? Here, let's show the whole. Here, look. Show the whole process. Can you see this and this? Just stand right there. All right. So here's what I'm doing. I'm pushing it back. Right. I'm setting it to 0, and then I'm prying it backwards. Right. So I'm going to pry it back. Right. And now look here. Look and see how much it moved. Zoom in on that. All right. So that's going rearward. All right. Now I'm going to set it back to 0 where it was. All right. And I'll stand back. And now I'm going to go forward. And watch what happens when I go forward. Boom, there's forward. Now come and zoom. See? So it's basically 5/1000ths either way. Okay. So that's my end play. So that was the more accurate way to do it. And it says here, GM recommends between 15 and 78. So where was I at? I was right in the middle. Okay, so I'm between these two numbers. Okay, so am I good?
Yeah.
I'm good. All right. Always follow the recommendations of your crankshaft or bearing manufacturer when using aftermarket parts. All right, so according to the book, the crankshaft end play is fine, but I'll double check tonight on the website and make sure that the manufacturer doesn't have any odd numbers. So this check, as far as I'm concerned, is good. So I did check number 10, which is check crankshaft play, and as you saw, I had the little gauge here that measures the travel, and so far this crank is spinning in here real nice and smoothly. It feels tight but not overly tight, and it spins smooth. So I actually kind of like this. It feels solid. All right. So now we're going on to 11, which is check reluctor ring runout. And it says mount a dial indicator to read off the back of the reluctor ring, which is this guy right here. All right. And it says here about 1 millimeter below the teeth. While holding the crank forward or rearward with slight pressure to eliminate thrust clearance, spin the crank and note the dial indicator reading. Lateral movements beyond, wow, 28 hundredths? We're talking hundreds, not thousands. Indicates the need to replace the reluctor ring. Some engines even require tolerances as tight as 1/10 of an inch. Or 100th of an inch, rather, sorry. Don't ignore a problem here, as it means your crank position sensor may not be able to deliver a proper signal. Now, I've got to think that the reluctor ring is probably in good shape because it came brand new with the crank, which is brand new. Anyway, I'm going to get this set up and I'll be right back. Okay, so now I am on 11. Check reluctor ring runout. Okay, here, come on over here. And you can see I've got my little runout tool here set up with one of these little snake things set up to measure the reluctor ring. And it says mount the dial indicator to read off the back of the reluctor ring about 1 millimeter below the teeth. So that's about 1 millimeter below the teeth, maybe a little bit more. While holding the crank forward or rearward with slight pressure. Spin the crank and note the dial indicator reading. Lateral movement beyond 28 hundredths indicates the need to replace the reluctor ring. All right, so what we're looking for here, let me slide over here. We're gonna hold this forward, and then we're gonna I'm going to reset it to 0 again. Is it 0? It's close enough.
Okay, close enough. Okay.
All right, so I'm going to pull it forward. Look how it bounces back between 0 and 80.
Why is it doing that? Is it supposed to do that?
All right, so the question then is, what is the measurement here? So this would be, so if these long ones are thousandths, then one of these big ones would be a hundredth, right? So it almost hit the 80. So that would be like what, 2 hundredths if it hit the 80. Does that make sense? No. So if each dot is if each line is a thousandth, then 10 of those would be a hundredth.
Oh, okay.
Because we're dealing in orders of 10.
Okay. Yeah.
So when it moves to 90, that's 1/100th of lateral movement. When it goes to 80, that's 2/100ths of lateral movement. It looked like we had almost 2/100ths. And what does the book say? The book says, it says lateral movements beyond 28 inch indicates the need to replace the reluctor ring. Some engines even require tolerances as tight as 1/10. Okay, so what would 1/10 be? All right, so there's one more way to set this up, right? So what we could do is we could put this on 0, and we could say our goal is to stay below, okay, if this is 1/10, okay, then this would be, let me get back to 0. This would be, oh crap. All right, now I gotta re-zero it. All right, so that would be this line right here would be 1/10. That would be 2/10. So 28 would be like right there. Agree? 28 hundredths. 1/10. Or I'm sorry, 1/100th. I'm sorry, 1/100th, 2/100ths, 3/100ths.
Okay.
All right. So it would be 28 would be if what would be 25 hundredths? That would be right here, right? So we want to stay below. Let me just get rid of the 90 just to avoid confusion. What we want to do is we want to stay below, we want the lateral runout to be less than that. We don't want the dial to hit. We don't want the dial to go past that notch right there, right?
Okay.
because then that would be out of tolerance, right? So this dial can move around anywhere between 0 and that little notch that I set up there. Ready?
Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right, you ready? So I'm going to pull forward on it a little bit, and then I'm going to spin it. Oh, what was that? That was something freaky's happening here. Oh, the gauge is moving. That's the problem there. All right, you ready? That's not 0. There we go. Well, by God, that's less than a tenth. That is some pretty good tolerance right there. There's very little, very, very little. All right. So, here, let's have a look. So, the Reluctor ring runout. Some engines require tolerances as tight as 1/10 of an inch, or 1/100th of an inch. I think we're good here, right? Because it was bouncing back a little bit, but it was within 1/10 or 100th. All right. So I think we're going to end this video right here, because the next step here is installing the camshaft. All right. So what we're going to have to do next time is flip the engine over and do some stuff here to assemble the camshaft. So I think we're in a good spot here to end this video. We'll see you in the next episode.